Everyone to day 2. Today is 3/24/2020, and today we're going to go over our homework for Unit 8-2. Just a quick review of what we did the other day. We talked about the parts of a parabola. Remember, if A here is positive, the parabola goes up like this, so it has a little happy face, and there's his nose. And if A is negative, it's upside down like a frown, so it's sad. We have a line that goes through the middle that cuts it in half. We would call this as axis of symmetry. This has a high point, so it has an absolute maximum. So we have a maximum vertex, and this would be like a negative x squared. And here we have a happy one, so it's a positive x squared. Axis of symmetry here. Vertex is at a minimum. And again, we talked a little bit about solutions. You could have no solution where it doesn't hit the axis, one solution where it hits it one time, and two solutions where it goes through the x-axis twice. Sometimes it goes through the y-axis. That's really not a thing. It really doesn't matter whether it does or not, depending on what's happening. Of course, on the ACT, they may ask you about the y-axis, and you should be able to plot it and just find it where it works or goes through. Okay, the points where it goes through, they could be called solutions, x-intercepts, roots, zeros, or answers. So a lot of the time they say, they'll give you a quadratic expression and they'll say, find the roots instead of find the solutions. So it makes it kind of tricky. Another thing for my students, don't forget you can download Wabbit EMU. I also sent you an email about different ways you could download a Texas TI-84 emulator on either laptop, phone, or whatever. A Texas Instrument has that for free right now. But I like the Wabbit EMU, and it works just like a regular calculator. I forgot mine at school, so this is what I'm going to use when I need to use a calculator. Don't forget, while you're getting ready, get out paper, pencil, and a calculator of some sort. You might need it, you might not. Another thing, don't forget, for my students, after we finish homework 2, we will have an open note quiz. I'll just post that for you on the internet, give you the link, and then I'll have a lesson for Unit 4 after that. Okay, so right now we want to look at analyzing a graph. So this has already been graphed for us, and here is the equation. So I want you to look at that and see if you can determine what is the axis of symmetry. So you might need to pause that for a moment and tell me what the axis of symmetry is for this. Just want to know the axis. You don't have to graph this or anything, write it down, just think about it. What's the axis of symmetry? And what is the vertex? And is it a maximum or a minimum? So pause the video for a minute if you don't know. Okay, the axis of symmetry is where x equals a 1. If you see it right there, it would go right through the middle. So axis of symmetry is x equals 1. So x equals a 1. Our vertex is that point right there where it goes through. So that point, remember we have an x and a y there. So x is 1, and then y is 2. So the vertex is 1, 2, and that has the absolute low point, so that would be called a minimum. All right, let's take a look at this one right here. Okay, so we want to know what is its axis of symmetry and what is the vertex. So if you need to pause the video for a moment to check that out, you can. Sorry about the lines going through the picture. I don't know what's causing that. I've restarted my computer a couple times and it's still doing it. I've done nothing different today than yesterday. Okay, our axis of symmetry goes through here. So that's at x equals a -3. So x equals a negative 3. And my vertex is this point here. So x is negative 3, y is negative 3. So that's a negative 3, comma, negative 3. And it has an absolute maximum. Okay. Another thing we need to talk about is the domain and range. Okay. So remember the domain and the range. So domain has to do with x's, and range has to do with y's. So sometimes I like to put the x and the y up there so I can remember. For range, think rangy, so that's to do with the y's. So how far up and down does this go? Well, it has absolute minimum at y equals 2, but it goes up. So we can say our range is y is greater than or equal to a 2. Now the domain is the x's. So notice as this goes up, it still goes to the right slowly, but it will get there. And it also goes to the left slowly. So as this goes up, it goes out. So if there's a little guy sitting here at the negative 4 and it was raining down, this would still protect him. It would be way up high, but it would protect him. So their range, we can say, is all real numbers. Okay. All right, let's look at the domain and range of this one. So figure out what you think those are. Pause if you need to. Domain, again, is the x's. Okay, so that's from all the way left all the way right. So that's going to be all real numbers. You'll notice that almost all the time it is all real numbers for a parabola, unless it's piecewise. Okay, range has to do with the y's. So it goes to the negative 3. So y in a negative 3. But it's below negative 3. So it would be less than or equal to a negative 3. Okay. So on the worksheet today, you have 2 graphs to analyze, and they're pretty simple. The work to fill out for that, you can just write down what the answers are, take a picture, and send it to me. All right, so here's one a little bit different, and they've given us the graph, and we have to figure out which one it is. Okay, remember, if it's x squared positive, it's going to go up like this. If it's a negative x squared, it's going to go down like that. Okay, so it looks like that goes down, so that means it's definitely going to be a negative x squared. So I can mark that one out, and I can mark that one out. So my 2 choices are these right here. Now we can analyze the graph, and it looks like I have an axis at x equals a negative 2. Well, if you remember from our homework the other day, we found that by using the formula x equals negative b over 2a. So all we have to do is take these 2 equations here and plug in the values and see if it works, okay? So I know I need a negative 2. Negative 2. So will this work if I plug in for a negative b, so that would be a negative 4 over 2 times a, which would be a negative 1. So it gives me negative 4 over a negative 2. And you see that's a negative over negative, which gives you positive. So you know it's not that one. So it means it's not A. So it means it has to be C. Let's test it to make sure. So I need x equals negative b over 2a. So a negative 2 is, I know is what I should have. Then I put in my negative b. So it would be a negative 4. So negative 4 over 2 times a, which is a negative 1. So that's going to give me 4 over a negative 2, and that does reduce. So we know that one works. Okay, so last one here, same type of scenario. So I want you to pause the video for a minute and see which one you think that is. Okay, I'm looking at this and it's upside down. It's a negative. So no, it's not that one and it's not that one. So I'm left with these two. So I'm using my formula just like I did up here before, and looks like I need a negative 4.5. So x equals negative 4.1/2. This won't be the easiest one to work. Now I'm going to turn it into an improper fraction, so that would be a negative 8/9. So that's a negative 9/2. So I'm going to see if I can get that to work. Okay, so I know this is going to take me a little bit to work out, so I've grabbed a piece of notebook paper or scratch paper I can work on. So now I'm going to use x equals negative b/2a. And I know in this case it should be x is negative 9/2. Alright, so I'm going to use for b here. So I'll have a negative 9/2 times negative 1. So I'm going to see if that works. That's going to give me a negative 9/2. Well, it's not that one. I know, oops, sorry, that's off the paper. So I know it's not going to be B, so I can mark B out. So it means it has to be D. So I'm looking for negative 9/2, and I'll plug it into my equation. Again, pause the video if you need to. So that's A, so that's a negative 1 goes there, and this goes here. Okay, so negative negative is a positive over a negative 2, and yes, negative 9/2 is the same as 2 over negative, or excuse, same as 9 over negative 2, so it's that one, so it is D. Alright, so you kind of got to do process of elimination by looking at which way it goes. First, cancel out the ones that have the wrong value of A. Remember, if it's positive, it's right side up. If it's negative, it's upside down. Okay, after that, you should be able to do the worksheet I have for you called Analyzing Quadratic Graphs. Now for today's lesson, the new thing we're going to look at is how to graph quadratics by hand. Okay, how to graph. So we might need our notes. How to graph quadratics by hand. Ran out of paper there. Alright, so the first thing we want to do, step 1, would be find the axis of symmetry. And to do that, we're going to use x equals negative b/2a, just like we did yesterday. Step 2, find the vertex. And we're going to use f of negative b/2a, which will be easy because we'll know what this is. And then step 3, we need to put the vertex in a row. Put vertex in middle column, middle row, excuse me, of a table. Then we're going to find 2 values on either side. Two values on left or right. Okay? All right, so let me take you through this. All right, so let's say we have, here we go, example 1, and we want to graph y equals x squared. Okay, so what was step 1? Find the axis of symmetry. All right, so step 1. So step 1, we're going to use this formula here. Let's see, well, what is A, what is B, and what is C? A is 1. I don't see B, I don't see C, so that's a 0 and a 0. Okay, so x equals negative B over 2A. So A is a 1, B is a 0. Okay, is this going to be undefined or is it going to be 0? I'm not dividing by 0. 0 is being divided by something, so I'll have x equals 0. Okay, so that's my axis of symmetry. All right, the next thing I want to do, step 2, I want to find my vertex, and I'm going to use f of negative b over 2a. I know what that is now. I'm going to use f of 0. I'm going to plug it into my original equation, which is right there. So I'm going to have 0 squared. So that's going to give me f of 0 equals, well, 0. So that gives me my vertex. That was x. What I get back is y. So vertex is 0, 0. Sorry, it ran off the page. So 0, 0. Now, step 3 was to put in the middle row of a table. So let's make a little XY table here. All right. And so we want 0, 0. Don't think I want to do it this way, but we're okay. We'll go ahead and put the 0, 0. So let's do 2 numbers to the right or 2 numbers to the left. Let's take a look about what this graph should look like. Okay, we have a vertex right here at 0, 0. If this is y and if this is x, I know it goes up this way. So it'll look something like that. So I like to use 2 numbers to the right or 2 numbers to the left. I like to work with positive numbers, so let's work with 1 and 2. All right. So we're going to plug in when x equals 1, we're going to find out what we get back. So I'm going to plug in f of x equals x squared. So I'm going to use function notation. So here's my values of x. I know what 0 is. So now I'm going to plug in 1 into 1 squared. Okay, what does that give me? So it gives me f of 1 equals 1 times 1 is 1. So that means I have a point at 1, 1. So I go to 1, 1. So right there I have a point. 1, 1. Now I want to find out what's happening at f of 2. So f of 2, I'm going to plug that into my original equation. So it's x squared, so put in my 2 there. So f of 2, 2 times 2 is 4. So that means I have a point at 2, 4. So let's go up here to a graph at 2, 4. There's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So about here, I'll have another graph. Now it'd be real nice if we all had printers, but I know some of you guys don't, so we're just going to do this by hand. Now remember, this is not a straight line. It's a curve because it's a parabola, so we need to put a curve in there. So you got to kind of sketch it in there with little bitty short strokes. Now right through here is your axis of symmetry. So on the other side, we have a mirror image of the same dots. So we put those in there and we sketch it, and you kind of got to get your curvy line in there and put your arrows on the end. All right, so that's our graph. Okay, now in our worksheet it asks for axis of symmetry. Excuse me. It asks for a vertex, our domain, and the range. Okay, so the axis of symmetry for this went right through the middle. So it's at x equals 0. Our vertex was right here, so that's at 0, 0. And then our domain, remember which one's what? So range is y's, think rangy. Domain is x's then. So the domain is all real numbers. And then the range, it starts from 0 and goes up. So y is 0 and up. So y is greater than and equal to 0. All right, so that's how that one's done.